the buzzword, right, of peptide is just so funny. I remember when I first chatted with you, I don't know if you remember what I said, but I'm like, look, man, I'm just not the guy that wants to follow the wave. Just because people are doing it, I really couldn't care any less. Doesn't impact me at all. But is there something to this? Is there something around human optimization and peptides and testosterone, whatever this is? And so I'm super interested, obviously, to hear your answer again. But for the listeners right now, they might be wondering, like, wow, what is a peptide? Or yeah, I've heard that buzzword, like I had, is like all these things. How do you calm the nerves of like, oh, just another health thing that they're trying to sell us?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, even right before I walked in to hit record on this, my staff is like, "Hey, we just got an email." And they're like, "Can you send us a list of peptides available?" And I was like, "Well, there's like hundreds." And so tell me more like what you're looking for. But yeah, people don't realize peptide therapies have been around a long time. In fact, they've been around since the 1950s. And so it's not just a buzzword, because actually every day in our body right now, every person listening to this has like 50,000 peptides that are working in your body right now. And so what peptide therapy is we can use those peptides or pieces of those peptides or similar to help things happen in the body. And so whether that's we want to burn fat, whether we want to build muscle, whether we want to grow younger, whether we want our skin to be healthier, our immune system to work better, all those, kind of across the board things that happen in the body happen because of peptides. And peptide therapy is using those peptides to make those happen, at higher levels, lower levels, balancing out, optimize, compensate for aging, all that. So peptide therapy is not a trend. It is the future. It's very trendy right now. But I've been doing prescribing peptides for 10 years since I first started as a doctor, over 10 years. So
Yeah, that's interesting because we had this conversation. Jake and I had this conversation when we sat down, and just kind of like this mindset that some people have towards just medicine in general, doctors. We talked about how yeah, you're a doctor, but you never wear the white coat. Like that's not the type of doctor that you are. And so help maybe the listener understand. I don't know if there's two types, but there's probably two types of mentalities, and you kind of fall into one, and you're using not as just this new thing that you can inject me with, which feels maybe more medicine and white coatish.
yeah,
but you think about it differently. Tell us about that.
right. Yeah. So there, yeah, definitely two kind of thinkings. Well, and I don't know. There, of course, there's a spectrum between that. So
Sure.
the allopathic or traditional or conventional side, which is a symptom pops up and we need to suppress that symptom with a strong chemical. And so that's of course what most people don't like. Of course, there's a time and a place for that. But then on the full other side of things, so I'm a naturopathic doctor by training, kind of even the more functional world as well, functional medicine world, is this category where things come up and our goal is then to optimize the body's function. And so rather than suppress, we want to optimize, because there's a reason. Like for instance, my daughter, she stayed home from school today because she's sick. She had a little bit of a fever. We're not trying to suppress her fever. We're trying to promote her immune system to help her body to function better so she can fight it off faster and then be stronger from it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so it's definitely a balance. And of course, there's a time when, if her fever was over 104, we would work to bring it down. But until it reaches a point where we need to, then we want to support her body, support her immune system instead of suppressing. So
Yeah.
yeah, so those are kind of the two basics of that. And ultimately it comes down to that as well. Are we trying to, by optimizing the body, by building up, and that's where peptide therapies can use. But then also we can use that same peptide and suppress the body as well. So like a popular one, we can talk about it depending how much you want to, but like Ozempic or semaglutide is a peptide. And you can use semaglutide to promote metabolism in a healthy way. You can also use semaglutide to suppress the body, to suppress food cravings, to suppress the digestive system, to suppress lots of things and have lots of complications and lose weight really fast, potentially.
Yeah.
And so it's all about a balance, and it's kind of how you use the tool rather than, and what you're trying to do with the tool rather than the tool itself.
Yeah, when I think about like human optimization, and I know obviously you love to talk business and family and fine. I mean, it's kind of you're a whole picture guy like I am, and so when we think of optimization, it's really just these layers of steps that we take to just keep getting better and better and better. And so I think when a lot of people think of their health, they think kind of in extremes. It's like, oh, I got to go on this major diet, or I got to whatever, and instead it could just be as simple as taking a couple of steps, maybe changing their thinking. It could be as simple as what you just said, as far as rather than to suppress something, I'm actually going to try to work with the body, whatever the body's doing. In that case of the fever, it's like, we do the same thing with our kids. It's like, no, actually, the fever is doing what it's supposed to be doing in the body. There's actually a large amount of benefits here. And so we want to be able to work with that. And so as almost listening right now, and they're thinking human optimization, they're a business owner, like they're already thinking in like, okay, next levels of how do I win? Let's just talk about the average individual. They work out a couple of times a week. They might ish look at what they eat. They're probably not taking very many supplements. What's just like the easy on ramp for someone like that to kind of just go, let me think about this a little differently.
Well, you mentioned supplements, and supplements are, of course, if anything, that's a big buzzword, trendy word, because supplement is something, that a supplement goes with something else to support something else. So a supplement has to supplement your diet. And people often forget that. They think, oh, I can just take this supplement or this vitamin, this mineral, and it's going to do what I need to do without realizing their diet is causing all the problems. And so that's a big, big thing. That is the foundational number one piece. What goes into your mouth has the biggest indicator of how you're going to feel on a day-to-day basis. When we were at lunch, I guess 3 or 4 weeks ago, whenever it was, we talked about what you put in your mouth the whole time, because what you put in your mouth is going to send signals to your body to make things happen, and so you can control that. If you want to be able to lose weight or lose, I hate the term losing weight. We want to lose fat. We want to preserve all the muscle we can and build muscle.
Right.
But if we want to lose fat, you can eat in a certain way that's going to help you to lose fat, almost regardless of the amount of calories you're eating, to get that timing. But then also there's other messages. There's not just, the vitamins, the carbs, the proteins, the fats that are there, but what about the chemicals that are there? We can't ignore that. That's another big problem. I know, with the new administration coming out, they banned Red 40 or whatever, and people don't realize that Red 40 has been in your food for a long time, causing your brain to go crazy for a long time. So those are messages. So that food you put in your mouth, not only the carbs are messages, not only the nutrients are messages, or the nutrients, but what other messages are being sent.
Yeah. I mean, other than, fuel, I know food is often recognized as fuel, and okay, great, I want to put the best type of fuel in. That makes sense to me. But I mean, you're talking about just like intentionally, like, what is this? Right. And what is it going to do in me, as opposed to what's for lunch and then I just shovel it in, right? Or I just order whatever sounds good and I shovel it in. That's like two worlds, and someone might be thinking, well, like, I don't have time for that. I run big businesses, I just can't do any of that, Dr. J. And I know that you obviously, and as well as I do, work with a lot of entrepreneurs that are successful and have lots of businesses that do have time for that. So what's the difference?
Because really it comes down to just a little bit of preparation, a little bit of awareness to realize, because it takes the same amount of time to eat my meals probably that it does to eat someone else's meals, right? And just knowing, be able to make those good decisions. And I was just thinking about a conversation I had with an entrepreneur, it was 2 weeks ago. And I've been to his house multiple times. He lives right around the corner, and he got a brand new soft serve ice cream machine. So big giant machine, invites the neighborhood over like once a month, have soft serve at his house. And I've been there a couple of times, because I have daughters and that are young. And so we go, they have a little bit. And he's noticed that I don't eat any. And so he asked me, he's like, how do you not? He's like, I just love ice cream so much. I'm like, how do you not eat it? I'm like, oh, I love ice cream too. But what you have in that soft serve machine is not ice cream. It's a bunch of chemicals that have maybe a little bit of milk product in there, a little bit of this and that. I'm like, if I eat ice cream, I make it myself. I pour whole cream and eggs, a little bit of vanilla, mix it up, and put it in my Ninja Creamy and make ice cream. That's real ice cream, not whatever chemical things. And so I'm like, because really he's so addicted to those chemicals that he has a soft serve ice cream machine in his kitchen. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but then he's wondering why I don't crave that. I'm like, well, because I don't have the chemicals all the time. And not that I'm better than it, just because I know which foods to avoid those chemicals. But
well, I'll let you take the stance that there's nothing wrong with that. I'll take the stance that there's absolutely something wrong with that.
So yes, I'm being too politically correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
I want to be a high performer. There's something wrong with that. So
yeah, I mean, look, I just got off of a call with some of our members in Gathering the Kings, and we were talking just some health related items. And the phrase that really changed for me probably 2 years ago was, does this serve me? And you can think that same phrase in your marriage, in your business, whatever. And it's like, whatever I'm doing or whatever I'm eating or the components of this ice cream, does it serve me? And, I like cookies and ice creams and candy. I've always had a sweet tooth. I've loved that type of stuff. And when I kind of made this switch probably 2.5 years ago now, the only thing I could think of how it served me was that it brought me joy, or like I enjoyed the moments, or that it tasted good. And I've had some people push back on me on this. It's like, wow, it brings me joy. I really love it. It's like, cool. I had that same experience. But then I asked myself this question: is that the only thing in my life where I can experience joy? And the answer was like, well, of course not. And so do I need this chemical wrong thing that I can't find any other value to for joy? It's like,
Right.
I could probably find joy in a couple of other places. You know what I mean?
For sure. Well, and then that joy, is it really joy? Is it just those chemicals are so strong that you feel that dopamine in your brain? You're like, oh,
Right.
this is joy, when really it's just a chemical. So
Yeah, that's so
go
true.
give your kids a hug and cuddle with them, or give your wife a kiss. That's joy. So
Yeah,
those are real chemicals.
exactly. I was talking to one of my employees in the last couple of weeks, and she was, she's quit smoking. She started reading, or running rather. She's starting to think a little bit differently about health, and she was like, she still does. I can't remember what it was, but she was still partaking in something, and she was like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I was really encouraging her, and she was kind of just ready in that moment to hear something a little challenging. So don't get me wrong. I'm not like walking around challenging people all the time, but I was like, hey, so, would you drink water with just a little bit of poop in it? And she was like, oh my gosh, no, heck no. I go, yeah, it's kind of that scenario that you just described. And it was just like, ding, like the light went off, and she was like, oh my gosh, I just totally said whatever I can't remember what it was, but she's like, I still have that. It's just got a little bit of da 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 da.
Yeah.
But once she understood that, it was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. No, I would never do that. And so now that I understand this, well, this is now easy. It's an easy decision. I don't need this. How does this apply for you? I mean, you look at entrepreneurs, we're talking testosterone, we're talking peptides, we're talking, nutrition, we're talking working out. Like, oh my gosh, it seems like a whole world of things, but really it's mindset first. Would you agree? Or would you
Oh,
have something to go along with
yeah,
that?
for sure. Absolutely. Mindset first. I just launched my podcast, the Superhuman Entrepreneur podcast. And so, a little plug, go listen to it if you know. But
Yeah.
my very first episode was all about mindset. It's all about this shift. And that's why I love that the concept of a superhuman entrepreneur, just like you have your gathering of kings, that high level thing.
Yeah.
If you're a king, you're different. If you're a superhuman, you're different.
That's
And
right.
it's all about leveling up and not being average. And so it comes from that mindset. And being a superhuman entrepreneur looks different for everyone. And so, just like every different superhero has different superhuman powers or whatever, you might be a little, HVAC company in a little small town in Arizona, or you might be, Microsoft or whatever.
Right.
It's kind of across the board, kind of where are you gonna be the superhero, and where do your superhuman skills need to step up. And when you do that, when you know that you're, that superhero or you're superhuman, that's an everyday thing. It's a mindset shift. It's not. It's like you need to always be working better. You never settle for less. You need to be at your top self, and
Right.
ultimately that's the mindset. And I know, I was at my rock bottom, and I was so miserable, and I knew it was in my brain, all these ideas to be able to help entrepreneurs and to help people, and what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur, and I just wasn't achieving it. But so that's what I call that shift that I made in my own mindset, was that superhuman entrepreneur switch that I found switched. And then since then, things have, and progress in business and family, everything is just like exponentially changed from then. I eat better, my body looks better, I'm stronger, my kids like me more, my wife likes me more, my employees are happier, we're growing like crazy, all the things. So
Yeah. I remember you telling me a little bit of the story, not just a specific switch that you're talking about, but I'm sure it probably played a role in the switch. But you were talking to our group and giving the story around just this perspective of health and superhuman, and you had clients crushing it, but when you looked at a family picture, you saw yourself and you're like, oh, dang, I'm not crushing it. And it
right.
took that family picture for you to kind of like look in the mirror, if you will, and go, how is it that I have all this knowledge and understanding and I'm actually helping people? It's like, it's not that it's wrong information. I'm helping people freaking crush. But when I look at my own family picture, I'm not satisfied with that. To a degree there, it's, that mindset you're talking about, that switch. How simple is it of just doing what you say you're going to do? Because that's basically the story that I got was
Right.
you just weren't doing what you said that you wanted to do or that you needed to do, right?
Yeah, no, it was. And so, yeah, it came down to, so I was like, okay, what am I putting in my mouth? And I'm like, okay, well, I stopped at fast food on the way home today because of XYZ, whatever excuse I was telling myself.
Yeah.
And like, I need to stop. And so, and so then I took control of that. And then I was like, oh, it's been 6 months since I stepped foot in the gym. I got to go in the gym. And so I started showing up at the gym, and then things started to change, progress. And then it's just kind of a step-by-step process through that. Cause once you reach a new level, once you reach that next step, then it's like, what's next? What can I do more? What can I do better? And then and sometimes peptides are really nice because they can speed up that step. They can speed up those results. And so it's nice that something like that is available to make up for, lost time, for lost years for so many people. So
Yeah, you just said something that may have rocked the listener. You said, that day perspective of no fast food. And we were just on that call, I was just telling you about just a few minutes ago. And one of our members was like, man, it's so tough sometimes, especially with young kids. Sometimes it's just easier to hit Chick-fil-A. And just kind of talking about this conversation. And my perspective on that was, look, I know this is going to sound really extreme. We just never, ever, ever do that. Like maybe in my child's, 11 years, my oldest is 11, maybe she's had that type of food 3 times, maybe, and that might sound really extreme. That's what I told him. I was like, I'm not telling that you should just stop tomorrow. But to your point, there's levels to this. And so you think, okay, well, if I recognize that that's not serving me, it's not serving my children, the chemicals in the ice cream or the Chick-fil-A sandwich, whatever, it doesn't really matter.
right.
I go, okay, great. How do I take steps now? Okay, so maybe we'll just plan a little bit differently on the food, or you start taking steps, right? Same thing with the peptides. Like I didn't know anything about this until I met you, and I'm like, okay, I've heard these buzzwords. Help me understand. I'm a 6'4" skinny guy. It's tough to gain weight. I'm eating like crazy, but X, Y, Z. So I'm like the opposite of a lot of people trying to, lose weight, like you said.
Yep.
But still, for someone like me, you're like, actually, here's what you need. You're just deficient in X, Y, Z, and we can help you facilitate that, right?
Yeah, it is just step by step. You have to start where you're at. And because if we throw like a million things at you, because I could lay out a perfect diet, right? Whatever the perfect diet is for someone. But if it's so drastically different, then someone's not gonna be able to change. And your body might not even like that because it takes time. Your physiology and how your body's functioning is based on where you are today. And so if we try to drastically change it, like your body's gonna fight back a little bit until it gets used to it. So you can either push through or we can go step by step and implement through the process. And so that's what we try to do with our program is we try to go step by step because we've just done it too many times and know that, if we throw a million things at the person, they'll do it for a week and then we'll never see them again. So start where you're at. And if you're eating fast food 7 days a week, 4 days a week is better than 7 days a week. So come back to 4 days a week and then come back to 2 and then come back to 1. Or if it's possible, if you can do the setup, then don't do fast food at dinner. Don't do fast food at lunch. You kind of slowly kind of figure out how to go step by step for that.
Yeah, I think that mindset is it feels to an extreme entrepreneur who's just like, oh, I'm just gonna charge the hill, and that it seems a little counterproductive to like take it easy. But it's actually it's the work that's necessary to win. That is winning, right? It's just the increments to get there.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You can't just try to eat the whole elephant at once. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really important. Let's stay here for a second. Talk to the entrepreneur who's listening right now that's extreme and they're trying to eat the whole elephant in their business and their marriage. Like,
Right.
they're just like, I want the exceptional life, Chaz. Okay, great. I want to be a superhuman, Dr. J. But we know that, that's like 2 to 5 to maybe even 10 years down the road of achieving something. Although we both know there's no like destination. It's just going to continually, I'm going to be trying to be a superhuman in another 10 years. I'm going to be trying to get the exceptional life in another 100 years, hopefully, So
Right.
talk about this concept of, the bites versus the whole thing.
So I do like I'm thinking there's a guy that just signed up with us. He sold multiple businesses for over 100 million. And he's like, yeah, just throw it all, give it all to me. He's like super, he doesn't even have like 10 minutes to talk to me, but he's like, just give it all to me. He's a super high performer. And some of you probably follow him on social media. I can't tell you who it is because of HIPAA, and so I'm like, okay, great. I'll do that. I'll give you everything. And so then I'm talking with his wife and talking with his assistant. I was like, okay, here's where we're going to start. Step number 1. And slowly, he was already going to another place that was throwing hundreds of supplements, all these different things. And I'm like, hey, they're burning him out. They don't know what they're doing. They're just throwing things on the fire. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, we need to stop this. We're going to start this. He's doing quite a bit, but then it's going to come down to, just the day by day progress that it's going to make. And that's the only way to do it. is to do. And yeah, and I definitely agree. I know the mindset. I mean, my to-do lists are always like 1,000 items long, with how the entrepreneurs think with that, but you can only do, one thing at a time, and that's how you truly make progress.
Yeah, there's urgency with a lot of high performers, right? Like we want to get it, we want to get it, we want to get it done right now. And even just that example you just gave, I've dealt with myself and then other entrepreneurs where it's just, well, hurry up quick, just give it to me, And it's like, actually, you're missing it. The fact that you want to do it like that tells me that right here, you're actually not ready. So thankfully for him, he's got a wife and an assistant that you can come back and go, okay, so here's the actual plan. And here's how we're going to trick him into thinking that, we're going to, get him to a high level. And you are, it just can't be that process, right? Not everything can be just crammed down the deal right this second. Although it's served us well as entrepreneurs, like cramming things down the pipe typically gets results. It's just a matter of, I mean, especially with health, this is the game that we get to play until we don't get to play it anymore.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
it's not like a hurry up quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And because it's different, because we're a living organism. We're not like a machine that we can just like switch a gear out and to make it go faster or something.
Yeah.
You have to up level your physiology, which is, down to how are your cells functioning. It changes. And just like someone like with testosterone, like we'll start a guy on testosterone replacement therapy. And they're like, oh, I don't notice anything for a few weeks. It's because literally there's not receptors in your cells yet to function at this level. So we give you the testosterone, your body sees that it's a higher level of testosterone, and it's going to take 2 to 3 months for your body to learn to function at that higher level, to actually make enough receptors to process it correctly. So
Yeah, let's talk about testosterone. It's on the list to talk about here. So, I mean, does everybody need it? Male, female? Is it just, it's kind of a buzzword again. Like, let me get on TRT and I'll get swole. Is it bad for me? Is it good for me? Give us the juice.
yeah.
No pun intended.
So were you thinking about that all week, trying to be like, what?
Yes.
That joke?
No, I
was like,
wasn't.
I
It
got
rolled
one.
right out.
So testosterone is an essential hormone for everyone, male and female. It's important. So the levels are very different. So women need like 1/10 of the level of testosterone that men do, but they need it. So testosterone, yes, it's really good for muscle building, for libido, but where I noticed the best improvement, and where my clients notice the best improvement, is how testosterone works in your brain, right? Is because, and for men and women, so testosterone is responsible for motivation, for drive, for focus, for helping your brain and your memory to work its best. Some of my favorite studies on testosterone show how beneficial it is to prevent Alzheimer's disease. Now, that's just another reason, not just to have normal ranges, but optimal ranges. So for men, for instance, they show that if a man has testosterone of 700 to 1200, which is the optimal range, which is different than normal, that they're less likely to have Alzheimer's disease and heart disease and cancer, kind of across the board. And that's also where they feel better on a day-to-day basis too. Their workouts are better, they're stronger, their sex drive is better, all the things. So
Yeah, it's incredible. And you're right. This the elements of changing something in our body that often doesn't happen overnight. That's us going, hurry up quick, show me the results, right? But it also doesn't take multiple years either. You're saying a couple months down the road, you should start to see some major improvements. And for the the entrepreneur listening, they're optimal. Like if they're really trying to become a superhuman and optimize, should they be thinking about like buzzword topics, or should they be thinking like like what you did with me, which was, hey, let's actually just take a look at your body and see what particularly you individually need, and talk about that for a second.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So because there's no shortage of people online that will try to sell you stuff,
Right.
as
I
everyone
can buy
else.
testosterone. I can buy peptide. I mean, I buy it all right now online, right?
Yeah. And so, but it comes down to, you are different than everyone else. In fact, I just recorded a podcast on this, talking about the N=1 study, which is becoming an expert in yourself. In scientific studies, they N is the number of participants in the trial. And so you need to be the expert in you, right? I don't need to be the expert in you. You need to be the expert in you. I can help. My goal is to advise you and help you to know the things to do to implement as your N=1 test. You're testing yourself, but it comes down to needing to know. And so many people will say, "Oh, you need this. You need a cold plunge. You need to do the red wave or red light therapy. All the different things." Right? Even you've sent me text messages. What do you think about this? But ultimately, what does your body need? And there's a few there. We know your body needs nutrients. There's essential nutrients your bodies need to function. So there's, the B vitamins, the minerals that you need, the omegas that you need, and the amino acids that you need. Because if you don't get those, your body is going to start deteriorating and getting sick. So whatever nutrition plan you choose, you need to get in what your body needs, whether that's, a full carnivore to full vegan or somewhere in between. You need to make sure you get everything that your body needs. And then we can actually measure, and this is one of my, which we talked about before, we can do a lab testing and actually measure, do your cells, are they actually getting all those things in? Are you getting that vitamin B that you're taking in that capsule, or the vitamin B that's in the food you're eating is actually getting into your body or your cells to work right? And then we can measure and see, oh, yes, no, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And then we can then customize the supplement for you based on what your body actually needs, rather than just wasting money. Because people will spend a lot of money on supplements. I've seen crazy lists of what people are spending on supplements. And then we do their lab testing and they're like, yeah, none of this, $500 to $1,000 you're spending per month is actually making it in your body into your cells to work right. And so love looking to measure at that, because just like your business, you need to do a true assessment. Are you making money? Where's your money going? If you're doing ad spend, is that bringing people in? And knowing your numbers, just like in business, knowing your numbers for your health is so key.
Yeah, I remember going through my test results with you, and you were like, I can't remember. Are you on like a multivitamin?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I don't see it. This should be this, that should be this, that level should be here. If you were really taking a multivitamin that was worth a darn." I'm like, "Wow." And actually, Julie and I, it's not like we just went to Walmart and picked up, the multivitamin. It was just some pretty good research, and we thought we picked a good one. And here, based on test results, it's not even showing up in some of the basic levels that it should have been if I was, actually absorbing the nutrients, right? This is so crazy to me.
So that's definitely where, if you want to be a high level performer, don't just guess with your supplements, figure out the details and get it customized. And then once like the foundational stuff, the foundational nutrition, foundational exercise, foundational sleeping good, once those things are managed, that's when the fancier stuff works better. That's when the cold plunging works better. That's when the peptides work better. That's when the whatever methylene blue, all the crazy things that I hear. I'm sure you guys probably all see them on social media, and I hear more about even more the stem cells, all the things. That's when they work better, when you actually have that foundation of health established. So
that's what I've appreciated about that I've learned from you, is that it's not that these things are your answer. They are maybe a part of the answer, but we got to go back to what we know. It's like what you put in your mouth and what you do with your body is really, really important. Okay, fine. We know these things, but let's take a look at it in detail. Let's take a look at the test results. Let's see what your body needs. And then, yeah, there's probably going to be some other things over here, whether you said stem cell or TRT or peptides. Like there's probably a mix of some of those things for everybody to get to the optimal levels of all these levels. But we can't just skip over the basics. You kind of mentioned this a few minutes ago with what was it, Ozempic? Just taking something that just gets us there and gets us results quickly. It's like actually what you're doing is harming so many other things by skipping the real factors. And so for the the optimal the levels of brain function and body function, is there something that I should be thinking about when, considering, okay, am I healthy? Am I not healthy? Am I, somewhere in between? Do I really need a blood test? Do I really need to work with a doctor, a performance doctor, or can I just do it on my own? I mean, I know that obviously I've chosen to work with you and several of our clients have chosen to work with you, but how does that, like someone's thinking right now, like, I don't know. I think I could maybe do it on my own versus, working with somebody. What's the major benefit, I guess, maybe it's probably the right question.
Yeah, well, which is hard for our world, because anyone can go create an Instagram account and suddenly they're the expert on whatever topic that they post on, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, for instance, peptide therapies, super interesting world, right? Peptide therapies, there's thousands of profiles that pop up, said, oh yeah, we're the expert on this peptides, and get your BPC from us, or get your Sermorelin from us. And then, but people don't realize that peptides have been around for a long time. Doctors have been studying them for a long time, and for a good decade plus, some of these peptides even longer. And so going to someone who knows what's actually going on and what that peptide is trying to do and can use it correctly makes a big difference. So just like with, if you had a big block of marble and gave someone a chisel and a hammer and said, all right, go for it, they'll go and carve whatever out. But then if you give that to Michelangelo, he'll create the David statue. Very different, being able to know how to use it correctly. And sure, yeah, they can, the amateur can go chip off a few blocks of that and be like, hey, look how much, marble I just chipped off here. But what's that end result actually going to be? Can make a big difference.
Hey, kings and queens, Chaz Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other grow.
How many times, I would assume that it's probably the majority of folks that you work with, but for someone like me, who's like, okay, I've been on a health journey. I've done a lot of really great things, kind of quote unquote on my own. I've had different trainers and different, voices that speak into me. But when I met you, it was like, okay, I was ready to optimize and become a superhuman. And I knew that there was just not really, I had reached my glass ceiling as far as what I could do. Now I'm sure I could press the needle and press it up a little bit more and become a little bit better. But I was ready to like, okay, I've reached the end of my line, and I now recognize that I need someone way beyond my understanding to help me go to the next level, that quantum leap, if you will. I would assume that the most of your clients are like that. They're just ready to go, you know what? Just here, tell me the plan, and I'm going to freaking do it, right?
Yeah, so for sure. With that, it's having someone, like I think I mentioned this a little earlier, but those Instagram influencers, like they know what works for them. Like they might have took this one peptide that one time that did something for them that they felt. But they don't know you, and they don't understand how that whole physiology works together. As much as we don't like conventional doctors, there is some value going to a conventional medical school. You learn how to evaluate studies. You learn how to do all these things. And so having someone, on your team, like I said, I'm not the one that needs to be the expert in you. You need to be the expert in you. I can just help you to do that. And so, in my journey of doing this and investing in myself to learn the basics and then learn beyond the basics to be able to make high performance happen. I've now not just helped one person do it. I've helped thousands of people to optimize their health on different levels. And so that can really help me to help you to become even more of an expert in yourself, because I have, the lessons learned from all 10,000 other people I've worked with. I can share those 10,000 learning experiences with you to help you to figure out what's going to be best.
Yeah. And I think that language right there, if that like sinks down in someone's ear around, performance, that's what it is. For anybody else who doesn't hear that, they're just not performance driven, or they're not, it's just not the right time, whatever, they're just not hearing it. Right. I learned this a long time ago, probably back in my 19, 20, 21 years old, but I've recently had a mentor that kind of re-brought it back up that, the success for the top 2% isn't because they think of success as a mere preference. They're demanding it. And so I see it in the same way here. It's like I was now in the position where I was demanding the next level of my health and optimal performance. And so I think that it's just a no-brainer when people are like that. I want to ask you, we talked about your kids there for a second. I want to ask you about family and just kind of maybe bring all this stuff down to like super practical terms. We talk about the family quite a bit in GTK, but on a weekly basis, what does that look like? Maybe even inside your home, or some of your clients like me, where, entrepreneur, spouse, maybe both are involved in the business. Maybe they're not. They've got kids. How does optimal health inside of a family look in 2025?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is well documented in the studies. I think the number one thing that a family can do is eat dinner together. Yeah. It's crazy, the data on that. So not just for nutrition, but for your kids' mental, emotional well-being, all the different things. It's just huge game changer. And so that's something that we always try to do, is to eat dinner together. It doesn't always happen because my oldest is now in 6th grade. She just turned 12. And so now there's the things that are popping up with, sports and different activities. And my girls are in kind of like a high level choir that they go to once a week. Anyway, so, we try to keep our kids super active and doing lots of different things. But that's one thing that we try to always hold, sacred for our family, is having that dinner together. And then definitely on weekends and Sundays, we can do a lot more of that. But yeah, and it's just kind of piece by piece. And like we talk to our kids, like these things we've just been talking about with food, we talk to our kids about that. And I'll help them make good decisions. And so just like, for instance, at church just this week, they were handing out candy in the little kids class. And the teacher came and told my wife after, they're like, hey, Dottie, my 9-year-old, she didn't take a piece of candy. And so I asked her, and she asked Dottie, and she's like, oh yeah, I know that's not good for me, whatever, because she's really sensitive to red coloring, so she knows that. And so I was like, hey, what we've been talking about on the dinner table, who knows who has a 9-year-old that would turn down a piece of candy, right? But slowly starting to work with them, and they get their protein in, and they know that their dad every morning is going to ask them, hey, did you get protein for breakfast? Because they get up and get ready themselves and get their own breakfast. And so I always, hey, did you get your protein? Did you get your protein? And so it's just a slow process. And of course, we've been working on it for a long time with our girls, but it's, that's the basic of it. We control what food is in the pantry. And is everything perfect? No, it doesn't need to be perfect, but it's really good. And so that way we know the food that they're putting in their mouth is what's going to help them grow and be stronger and be healthier going forward.
Yeah, I love those two components right there. Control the controllables, aka the things that are in the fridge, in the freezer, in the pantry, because kids are hungry, right? They're gonna snack, they're gonna eat foods, they're gonna do things. Okay, cool. Especially if they're entrepreneur families like yours and mine, where we're trying to build autonomy and help them make good decisions. We don't want to just like, okay, here's your nicely cut up meal every single time, We want them to start doing these things. But then the second piece that I heard you say was the understanding, which we do the same, helping them understand the ingredients or why they're eating this and why there's meat on the table and what's that doing in their bodies and why we don't like candy and why my kids do the same thing, whether at a church function or something different than other kids. They're the ones that are like, no, that's okay. In fact, before they recognized they were pretty young, we tricked them. Totally guilt tricked them into doing brownie night on Friday nights. I told them, I remember, my oldest at that time was probably 8, maybe 7. And then so 7, 5, and 2. And then my youngest wasn't even born yet. It was like, hey guys, so if you guys are out and about, what are you at that time they were in school, we didn't do homeschool. But if you're out and about, you're at school or wherever you are, if you come across, candy, cookies, cakes, birthday celebration with your friends at school, whatever, if you guys decide to forego that, every single Friday, we'll have brownie night here at the house. And they were like, bet, like all in, Dad, we agree. Because even every single week was not a regular thing for us. It was like, sometimes there would maybe be sweets. But I said, like, no, we'll do it every Friday night. Now, and they got super excited about it. And then, of course, the brownies that we're giving them are, sweet potato, avocado, like this, this brownie that's not even a brownie, but they love it. It's great. It's fantastic. And then now they're older and they get it. They still like the brownies, but they like other things too. And they understand though, that it's like, no, I get to choose this because it's good for my body. It serves me, right? That's super cool. Talk about that just for have a half second as a doctor looking at your children. And then of course, probably children of clients like me going like, man, rewarding the next generation, or maybe it's rewarding to you to be able to see the next generation, like picking up these things. For me, that's like huge, but talk about it from your perspective as a doctor.
I mean, even just like this week is a good example. So I think I mentioned my daughter, she's homesick from school today. I know her immune system is gonna be fine. We don't need to go to urgent care, or I don't need to prescribe an antibiotic for her. Her body's gonna work good. My 12-year-old was sick last weekend. And so she got over it now. She's now doing good. My other daughter got it. And in reality, like this is the first time in like maybe 3 years that my girls have been sick, because they just have super immune systems, even though, they're still going to conventional school or whatever, that all the germs are all around them. All their friends are not showing up because they're sick, but my girls, they're super, their immune systems work. And versus, I talk to my siblings or other people in our family and their cousins, like they're sick all the time. Things are always coming up and different things. And so really we built their immune systems to work better. So I know that, this little cold or flu, whatever it is they're going to fight off within 2 days. And then they're going to be right back to 100% doing what they need to do. And so, and even the ripple effect of that. So now they're going to be stronger. So when they get older and they have their own kids, they're going to be able to pass that on, and the same thing. But yeah, and it's setting an example and helping other people realize what's going on and how we can help them to be healthier, stronger, all the things.
Yeah, I'm going to switch gears here. Appreciate the perspective on the family. It's a big deal. I'm going to switch gears. I got one last thing I want to ask you about, because when we had lunch, you just blew my mind when we were talking about insulin connection to the body and insulin resistance and the things that eventually leads to, which we know as, some pretty big names. But you used to have a specific program where you only worked with folks that kind of had this type of bodily problem, as we'll call it. But let's talk about insulin. Let's talk about Alzheimer's, diabetes, like these things that eventually get led to from this. But it all can stem back to insulin, it sounds like. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about this. And I can pick your brain here.
Insulin is it's actually a peptide, but one of the master hormones in the body that control what's going on. And so what insulin controls, among many things, is the switch of what your body is going to use for energy. So basically your metabolism, your energy control is controlled by insulin. And so those two options are glucose, which is sugar, carbohydrates, or fat. And so those are the only two sources of energy your body has, either glucose or fats. And insulin is what controls that switch. And so that insulin resistance is like the term you're talking about, is when that switch gets slow and doesn't flip right away. Is kind of what insulin resistance is. Because when your glucose goes up, that's when insulin kicks in, because your body can only actually handle like about 5 grams of actual sugar at a time in the body. So wow. if you get more than that, your body needs to store it, because definitely it's an energy source, that sugar that's there. But if it's floating around, it causes damage. It damages your blood vessels, damages your brain, damages your nerves. And your body knows that, which is why insulin exists. And so what it does is insulin rises, and then it tells the body to move the sugar out of the bloodstream and store it. So you store it in your fat cells, you store it in your liver, you store it in your muscle, you store it in all the different cells. And they can save it for use later. And so that's controlled by insulin. But what happens is when that switch is really slow, and when the sugars creep up, and when it's not working right, that's when damage happens in the body. So that if it's happening in the bloodstream, that's what diabetes is. If it's happening in the blood vessels, that leads to cardiovascular disease and heart attacks and strokes and high blood pressure. And if it happens in your nerve cells in your brain, that's what leads to dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And so that insulin is the controller of that, of what that sugar is doing. And so that's what we need to optimize. And that's where it all stems back to that insulin resistance, is the slowing down of that switch to be able to control the energy storage mechanism.
Yeah. And you said, I might be saying this wrong, but hopefully I'm remembering this correctly. But when we ate together and I was asking you about this, you said that every single one, not one client of yours that came to you with this type of like, hey, I've got this thing I'm trying to work through, not after whether it was 6 months or 12 months, you were able to get 100% of them to a lifestyle where that was no longer an issue, that they didn't have to think about anymore. Now that changed. They had to live a different lifestyle, of course, but without a shadow of a doubt, with 100% of these people, you were able to get to a place after a certain period of time where they could be free of this quote unquote problem. That is just insane to me. Can you just give us just a little bit of insight to that?
So, and this is part of my entrepreneur journey too. So came out of medical school, kind of learned started putting pieces together, and I ran programs for reversing diabetes and reversing heart disease. And so people would come to me and they would be crazy diabetic, and on insulin or on all the different medications, and even though so they would talk to me, and our program was 7,000 or up to 17,000 depending on the levels of the program, but they would go to their conventional doctor, and their conventional doctor would tell them, oh, that doesn't work, you'll never be able to do that, you'll never be able to get off your insulin, you never do that. And then they would come back to me and they're like, okay, well, I still want to try it. And so within, we would do the things and I feel like we're even better now than we were then at doing it. But we would get them within 3 months, usually within a month, we're already lowering their medications. Within 3 months, they're like halfway down. Within 6 months, or some people, the real stubborn people, within a year, we were able to get off of their medications completely. Even if their doctors previously told them they had to be on insulin forever. These are type 2 diabetics. Type 1 is different, right? If someone needs clarification, type 1 is different, but type 2, so type 2 diabetics that ended up being insulin dependent, we were able to get them off of their insulin, and their pancreas and everything was still functioning correctly, off of all their medications, perfect blood sugars, perfect A1Cs, perfect insulin on the labs, and get them at a point where their body was back to functioning at optimal levels. Whether they were 45 or 85, we were able to do that. So
that's I mean, you obviously say it with such conviction and confidence because you did it, and I love it. But from somebody from the outside who I don't have diabetes, but I've heard and I've known some folks, and it's like a debilitating thing. Like they have to constantly think about it and whether they're getting the right things at the right time. And sometimes it's like tracked on their phone and all kinds of crazy stuff. And you're just like, yeah, well, we can correct that. It's like,
Yeah, it's easy.
wow. And here butted up next to, a white coat, if we will, a medical doctor who says, oh yeah, that won't work. You'll never be able to get off of that. And then you've done it countless times. That's just crazy.
Oh, and it'd be so funny because then the same clients that would work with me, they would go back to their doctor and they'd be like, I'm off of all my insulin, I'm off my medications, my blood sugars are perfect. Like not a single referral ever came from a conventional doctor. Even seeing the results from the people that would go back is just
Yeah.
crazy. And it's tough because and I think the doctor is actually part of the victims with this, is that the whole medical system is so driven by running a lab to see a number on a piece of paper to give you a pill to cover it up without addressing the cause. And so the doctors, that's all they know. They still, even though they saw it in front of them, they still wouldn't believe it, right? And so the doctors are part of the victims with that. And it's 70% or 80% of healthcare dollars are spent on someone who has diabetes, whether it's on diabetes specifically or other conditions that they also develop because of diabetes. Like diabetes is like the driver, or this insulin resistance is the driver of so much healthcare dollars that they will forever ignore that because they're just making too much money, unfortunately.
Yeah, the money is the driver. I saw the same thing, in COVID, where doctors were saying things that they didn't even know. They were just told. They were victims, just like I think the majority of us were. But they were just, this is what it is, and this is what we're going to do. And it was just like, put the cattle in the chute and work them through it. And it was just kind of a crazy to see that, to see a professional just regurgitate things that have now in so many ways been proven otherwise. It's just insane. But this trust, right? Because really what all this culminates to is, people like me, people like the listener are like, well, now I don't know who to listen to, whether I go to a doctor or not. And I find that at least people like me are like, I'm probably going to delay that. And I'm like looking for other solutions, not because, like you said, there's a time and a place for medical intervention. And I'm thankful for those things because I've had a appendicitis scenario, and I was thankful for those medical professionals, but my general health, I don't think that they have a clue. And so meeting someone like you that, has the qualifications, or rather, but is going to be working with my body, I just find that so valuable. But talk about this trust factor. I'm sure you run across it multiple times. People are like, wait, Dr. J, is this real? Are you sure? Because of all the other things that we've dealt with on the other side of the coat, if you will.
So yeah, definitely. I totally agree with all that. If I wasn't a doctor, I probably wouldn't trust doctors anyway. We talked about this, not yet today, but before. My wife has a kidney transplant, right? Conventional medicine saved her life. My wife would not be alive if it wasn't for the miracles of conventional medicine, which means she goes to her doctor every month. She's doing lab work all the time. And so, they're taking care of her kidney, and she needs to be on medication forever, well, to protect her body from attacking that kidney.
Right.
But everything else, like, they're totally clueless. They do not know what's going on. And so we support all the different ways. Most of our doctors don't know that I'm a doctor. And so I'll ask certain little questions, and they're like, oh, just so you know, you gave me approval to do her XYZ supplements or whatever. So I definitely, I have a very different perspective that I live in both worlds with that. Because I had that same distrust. In fact, that's kind of how my journey into medicine started. My friend got me a job working at Walgreens in the pharmacy right out of high school. And I was like, hey, this is pretty good money for a college student. And like every person we talked to was, they were nice, great people, but like they were actually miserable. They weren't feeling good. And so I'm like, this is not health. This is not, all my favorite athletes. I don't think that, the high performers at that time, like, I don't think, oh, I wonder how many medications they're taking to help them perform like they are. No, that's not how it is. It's what are they feeding their body? How are they nutrifying their body and building up? So yeah, and that kind of helped spur my journey along to end up being a doctor. I somehow knew that I wanted to be a doctor, and somehow found the right way, the right training, the right postgraduate training to be able to make it happen and to learn what I get to learn and share it with other people.
Yeah, and I appreciate your perspective, and really just it's a down to earthness about you that can talk about both just in a real fashion. I think it's like so needed in today's environment where people are just so tired of the rigmarole of just what we're being told, from hospitals and maybe even just big pharma, all the way to like, something online and you're like, do I do it myself? I don't know. It just all these questions and concerns. And then, for someone like you, to be able to kind of like be a beacon of hope of like, hey, actually, let's take a look at the whole perspective. Yeah, I hear what's going on over here. We're not going to like dismiss that totally, but let's take a look at your body. Let's take a look at what you need. And let's get it optimizing, to the best levels of perfection or of performance. And so, for the listener, I mean, as we kind of wind down here, I want them to be able to just recognize, like, okay, we've talked about a lot: peptide, testosterone, nutrition. If someone wanted to work with you, what does that generally look like? We'll get your like contact information in a minute, but if I want to start working with Dr. J, what is that going to mean for me as a person that's looking to up level my health?
So it means we are going to look at you kind of top to bottom, what's going on inside your cells. We're going to try to figure out what's going on. And then we're going to build a plan for you and have a team to help with nutrition, with exercise, for kind of everything to help keep you optimized. Because we don't want to leave any stone unturned. Like with our lab testing, like Chaz, you've seen our labs, like there's, as far as I know, no one that even compares to the level of labs that we run. Like I'll see ads all the time on social media, like, oh, we check 40 different blood markers. We do all the, I'm like, 40, we do what? 215 just to start out. And then we measure more along the way as we go. And so really just the detail of information and the understanding is what we try to provide. And not only that, my goal is to not just give you a fish, is to teach you to fish. And so we're going to show you the numbers and then show you how they're applying to you and then help you to get those all dialed in over time. And it's just kind of like that step-by-step process through that journey, get that dialed in. So
yeah, I love that. Just really simple approach, but I've appreciated it because, in the business and sales and marketing world, especially online, sometimes you just never know. And I've been trained now to like, double check and ask questions and flip things upside down. And I have just personally super enjoyed working with you and with your team. And I know several other folks that either way we've referred or folks that I've already known that have been working with you have had the same experience. And so if you're listening right now and you're thinking like, man, this sounds interesting, I'd highly recommend, reaching out to Dr. J. So why don't you tell us, what's the best way for them to be able to connect with you? And we'll put it all in the show notes as well.
So Unstoppable 365 is our medical practice, our program. So yeah, we're going to do a special discount so unstoppable365.com/GTK, Gathering the Kings. We'll have a special discount code on there for either a starter lab kit or even our big lab kit. So, and if you have questions on any of that, you can always schedule a call with my team to go over some of the basics and, what are we really testing? What all those things to tell you, we're all about understanding. And so we want to make sure you understand every step along the way. And so, yeah, so we'll have that promotion code up for you guys, for all your listeners, that they can take advantage, do that deep dive. We can gather information, we can review it, and then build a program out from there and figure out how
Perfect.
we can
just
help change the world.
Just to say, it's going to be in the show notes as well, but unstoppable365.com/GTK. Yep. Is I believe what you said. And so we'll put that in the show notes as well. Get you a kind of a little teaser on either a starter or the full-blown blood sample test. I did all of this. I've personally worked through this in detail with Dr. J and couldn't recommend it higher. And so if you're ready to take your health and just overall performance to another level, I would highly recommend you taking action on that. So Dr. J, man, thanks for being here. I know that I look forward to, you've been inside of GTK several times or, planned to be several times. And I just cannot just appreciate you enough for just the awareness and the knowledge and the wisdom that you've been, dropping on our members, but also just being here and for all of our listeners. You're doing it right, man. And I just appreciate you for that. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jess. Been a pleasure working with you and your people too. So
yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to Driven to Win. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.